Hey horror fans, thanks for joining me for this review of Doctor Sleep. Coming to you late with this one. Apparently I fell asleep on this movie and always thought I was the doctor of sleep here, but anyway, obviously missed this in theaters and took me a long time to get this one. I really wanted to see it and finally got a chance to. I'm going to dive into this in a minute, but of course, as usual, cast and crew information is down below, and let me read what IMDb has to say about this plot, and then I'll jump into this. Years following the events of The Shining, a now adult Danny Torrance must protect a young girl with similar powers from a cult known as the True Knot, who prey on children with powers to remain immortal. And again, I've been dying to see this. I was surprised after it originally came out, so many people liked it. Not that I thought they were going to do a bad job with the movie, but a lot of people put it in its top 10, and I figured since it was a long-awaited for sequel that maybe just I know a lot of people would see it, but I didn't think many people would like it that much. And it was just a guess. I'm not really basing that off any solid, concrete facts or anything like that. I just made that assumption, but it's long past 2019, and I don't know if I can exactly go back and compare it to some of the other movies. So I don't know if I would have landed in my top 5, top 10 maybe, possibly. But I did enjoy the movie, and let me just kind of take you through it a little bit. Here again, like it says, Danny's all grown up, but I guess in the beginning of the movie, it kind of starts off taking you back to when he was little, taking you back to the hotel, taking you back to a few different times when he's younger. And what's really cool in the movie, if you haven't seen it, they do recreate some of the scenes, and they do go back and shoot some of the scenes, but with new actors. This isn't redone footage with Jack Nicholson and so forth, and the people that starred in the movie in the Shining movie. This is new actors and reshot scenes completely, and which was really cool, because they could have just done it a cheap way and just cut footage and shown stuff from the original Shining as it was. They made it look pretty original and pretty much the same as could be. A few shots you could kind of really tell that it were different actors, but they did a good job of hiding it overall. So again, they use that to kind of sprinkle it in and remind you a little bit about what happened in The Shining. And one of the things I found very interesting was, and I'll throw it out there that no, I've not read the Stephen King books, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you, it followed the book perfectly, it didn't follow the book was better, the movie was better, and blah blah. I have no knowledge of the books, so you're not going to get any kind of comparison or anything out of me from that angle. What I thought was interesting was that The Shining is a classic. I take nothing away from it, but when I look at that and I think about The Shining, to me it comes off as basically Jack Nicholson playing a character who goes completely nuts and trying to be a family man, trying to write a story, but somehow in the middle of it goes completely nuts, and by the end of the movie tries to kill his family. Of course, there's other things going on in the movie. Of course there is. Things with Danny and even the wife. But kind of when I look back at The Shining, I mean, that's kind of what stands out to me. It's just Jack Nicholson going crazy, and then having a couple of those big, horror-like scenes at the end of the movie. and kind of The Shining doesn't shine through for me, or at least I don't go back and think a lot about The Shining, what that is, and I know that's the reason behind everything that's going on and why he goes nuts and the things that Danny sees and so forth. But I never really focus on that. I focus more on him just flipping the switch and the scene with the axe and on the stairs, and then then obviously the scene in the maze at the end of the movie and things like that. And even maybe a few of the things Danny sees are a little crazy, but I never really focus on The Shining. Whereas Doctor Sleep is all about The Shining. I mean, it is. If you really didn't get what The Shining was from The Shining, I mean, this movie will do it. It kind of covers it well, fills you in. Maybe again, like if you didn't think you got enough of knowing what The Shining was in The Shining, I mean, this movie basically does it. I mean, you could have almost renamed this movie The Shining. It's just a bigger presence here. You just definitely, when you leave this movie, you just have a better knowledge of what The Shining is and the weird stuff that happens that comes along with it. Because you have this group, this, I don't know, cult or whatever, if you want to call it, or this group of just weird characters, and they're basically sucking the life out of people who have the same abilities that Danny has, and apparently, for some of them, they bring them into their group, and then for others, they suck the life out of them and use this life force to continue on, and it's a little interesting there, and a little creepy, and so you get introduced to that. You see Danny, and he's obviously an adult now, and how he's moved on, and how he's tried to put the events of the past behind him. They obviously are some reminders to the hotel and so forth. And there's one character from his past that visits him a couple of times and kind of uses for guidance, and kind of like he did in The Shining, but again had a much I guess smaller. I think it was only one scene in that movie, and so Danny is trying to not get too involved in it, but what happens here is that this young girl who also has The Shining, or has these powers, and she's apparently guided pretty well. She's pretty strong in her powers and so forth, and I guess kind of I don't know if I'm the best person to explain The Shining in this whole thing, but it kind of just takes you into like a dream world or whatever. You can kind of cross paths with people without really being there, and she finds herself in the middle of seeing them take a young boy, and what they do to this young boy. And then the cult is led by this woman who's also very powerful, and I guess she feels the presence of the young girl, and it only seems like a matter of time before the young girl and this cult leader, I'm going to call it a cult, I don't know if that's exactly the right way to call it, but anyway, before this young girl and this woman are going to basically cross paths and see whose power wins out. And in the turn, the young girl is kind of messaging Danny. They don't really meet even in the real world or in the dream world. At first, it's a lot of just messaging on the board, a board that Danny has in his room, and then eventually, once the young girl kind of stumbles into this and sees what happens, then her past then do cross with Danny, and both, again, this dream world or whatever you want to call it, and then in the real world, because while Danny tries to stay out of it and is basically trying to stay off the radar of this group all these years, now in order to save this girl, he basically has to be on the radar now, and so he teams up with the girl, and in order to save her, and basically the story then moves back to the hotel. And I don't know if I've said too much. I don't know if I've spoiled anything. I'm gonna try to, I guess, stop there as far as telling you guys what happens. Obviously, there's a big showdown. But again, if maybe you read the books and maybe you want to know more about The Shining, this is definitely it. It definitely covers it. You know, you even get a little insight on this group of people, and I think they do a good job of slowly introducing what they are, and you see one of them pass away and what happens, and you see the struggle that this group is in and why they do what they do, and I thought it was just a well done movie overall. The acting is solid overall. There's not too much bad to say about the movie. Again, I give credit for them going back and The Shining is calling me now, but going back and redoing those scenes and not just showing the video edits of it. So there's just a lot good and a lot good of a sequel here. So with that, I don't want to spoil any more of the story. They head to a big showdown and so forth, and they kind of recreate a few iconic scenes, and they do take you back to some places in the hotel that you want to see again. And Danny also, he basically revisits his father's footsteps in a little bit of ways, so that's a little creepy. But definitely, I think it's worth seeing, especially if you're a fan of The Shining, and you should be, because I think it is definitely a horror classic. And with that, I think I'm going to give this one 4 pools of blood. I definitely enjoyed it, and definitely a worthy sequel. Maybe I would dive a little bit further into it, but I know a lot of people have already seen this movie. And again, I'm not going to say that I'm a most expert on the world of The Shining, but definitely if you've read the books, I'd be interested in knowing what you thought. Both movies, and now that you've seen both sequel, the movie and the sequel, and if you've read both books, what you thought and what you thought, if they did a good job or not, if they, how closely they followed or not. So if you did, you can leave that down in the comment section. I'd be interested in reading that, or any of your other views on this movie. And with that, again, horrorlsgoryreviews.blogspot.com is where you can find more reviews, written reviews, and definitely you can subscribe to this channel. And I'm going to wake up now and move on to the next review. So thank you, horror fans.